In this video, I'm going to put together a dynamic sculpture that has different pieces connected to each other in three different ways. So let me start with the simplest one here. I've got a box. I'm going to squish it down to 3 millimeters because that's pretty strong. Stretch it out, copy and paste. And when I'm going to rotate something, usually I need to move the camera around first. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees so it's standing up. I'm going to make it into a hole, and I want it to be going roughly halfway through this one, which I suppose it is. Oh, and I guess the center line is right there. That's good. So it's lined up on the edge. The only thing I need to do with this hole shape is make it a little bit larger, because when you have a solid and a hole and you want it to be able to move, the hole needs to be just a little bit bigger than the solid. So I've got a 3 millimeter hole right here, is what it's telling me. I'm going to move that up to 4. That is enough space. So now I select both pieces together and I group. So I have a 3 millimeter thick panel that has a 4 millimeter wide groove. So just to kind of demonstrate how that would work, let me just rotate and show you. So if I hit D, that goes back on the surface. I can copy and paste. I move another one over here. I can rotate that, and I can flip it over. And then the panels would fit together something like that. I suppose we could print it like this, and it might be okay, but I think it's going to be a lot more stable laying down and on the surface. And I hit D to get something back on the surface when it is not there. Okay, part 2. I'm just going to throw this extra panel off to the side. I'm going to connect this one to some other things, though. So I want to build a hinge. And basically, it's going to use the same kind of pin structure that we did with the ghost design. So let me shrink this down to 10 by 10. I think 10 is about your minimum if you're trying to get rotating parts in there. I'll just delete this one. So I'm going to zoom in on that by hitting F. And so the way the hinge is going to be structured is there's going to be 2 outer pieces. What am I doing? Trying to line this up. Okay. And then there's going to be a gap between the 2 outer pieces and an inner piece. So it's going to look kind of like this, with 1 long piece in the middle and 2 shorter pieces on the end, with a reasonable gap in the middle. So what's going to go in there? We're going to use a cone shape again to create the pin. And let's hit F to zoom in. Let's start by rotating 90 degrees to the side. And I'm going to hold Shift and shrink it down to 10 by 10, so it'll fit perfectly on the edge here. And I'm just going to move this off to the side. Let me put the pins on the inside part and the holes on the outside part. You could do it the other way too, and it would not matter if you wanted to flip those around, but I think we have centered this pretty well. Copy, paste. I'm going to line it up perfectly before I do anything else, and then I'll mirror it this way. Oops. And then I move that all the way over to the other side. And let's get this red piece out of the way. So the purple thing I just need it to be fully overlapping, and that's good. So next we're going to cut the holes out of the squares. Okay, so now that this is lined up, I'm going to copy and paste one of the purple pins, change it into a hole, and move it right into place on this side thing. Before I group these together, important thing, oh, and it's not quite perfectly centered, is it? Now it is. Now it is. So I'm going to actually stretch this piece out a little because I want these side pieces to be connected to this panel over here. So I want them to stick out a little bit. So I may need to rotate, and let's just stick it out to, oh, I don't know, 15 is fine. That should give us enough turning room. So I'm going to, oops, I don't want to select 4 shapes. I just want to select 2 shapes. Group it, and it should cut out very nicely with the thing sticking out on the end. So instead of bothering to do the same thing with this one, I'm just going to delete that, and I'm going to copy and paste this one and go up and mirror it in this direction, in the horizontal direction. So that should fit great on the end here. So let me put these caps onto the hinge again, roughly in the spot where they're supposed to go, and then I'm going to zoom in on each one to get it perfect. Oh, I guess I have to look this way. Oh yeah, that looks fine. It looks like it's centered and there's enough of a gap there, but the thing isn't going to pop out on its own. All right, other side. Yep, looks centered to me. All right, so now that I have this all lined up, I do not want to mess it up. Hold on. If I look down, it's easier. So I'm going to select all of this stuff together, which is actually 5 shapes, group it. And just for fun, let's change the color. So now this is all one shape, even though it's really 1, 2, 3 pieces that will be born together, so to speak. So let's line this up over here so that just those pieces are overlapping, and we want to leave a little bit of space here for rotation on the inner piece. That's pretty good. That's a nice solid connection, and you could do other things to make that connection point stronger too if you want to put more shapes there. But this is good for now. So what do we connect? What do we want to rotate? Well, I don't know. Let me just throw a large tube shape on there. Doesn't have to be centered, I don't know. That's good. So it's kind of like a handle for everything that will rotate. Let me connect it just a little better. We definitely don't want this to be touching the outside parts, but it has to be well overlapping with the inside. That's good. All right, so what's our third way of connecting something? Ball joints. You may have seen in the connector menu right over here that you have a bunch of ball joint options. So let me pull out the 2 basic ones. That first one, which is just called ball, and this purple one, which is called socket. We can work with these. The main difficulty when you're working with these is that Tinkercad has it set up so that you cannot change the size. Scaling is locked. Why is that a problem? Because whenever people have tried this with me, it doesn't fit. The outside is too tight and it ends up snapping off before you can actually fit the ball joint in. So the outside needs to be enlarged slightly if you want this to work. So we do have a way of tricking Tinkercad into allowing this to get bigger, and I'll show you that in a second. But first, let me just work these things into the sculpture. So this I want to rotate 90 degrees. I want it to stick out to the side on here. Oh, and actually, let's just, and I hit D to get it down to the surface. So that looks like it fits pretty well. And you just want that bottom shape to overlap, and so that this is free. And let's put two of them on. So I'm going to copy and paste. Let's do another one. Let's do another one facing this way. We're going to need supports to hold this up, but that's no big deal. It's a small amount of support. Oh, and I just wanted to zoom in on that and make sure it's overlapping okay, and it looks good. So we have some ball joints on there. We just need to put something. So what do we want to put on the socket here? How about this? We have this character menu. I am going to go down here and grab this sneaker shape. And I want some feet coming off of this sculpture. All right, so that'll work. We may have to adjust the size. I'm going to go back up to basic shapes. I'm going to put a leg in the foot. Zoom in, I'm holding shift to keep it round. And I think that's about right. And then, yeah, it's pretty good. It doesn't matter if it overlaps a little bit, because keep in mind this is all one color, so nobody will ever notice the small overlaps like this. So let's make a foot, and I'm going to rotate this guy to be going straight up, and I'm going to lift it off the surface and try to line it up on the top there. We're getting there. Keep in mind I cannot change the size of the purple thing right now, so what I'm going to do is grab the other two things, hold shift, make them bigger. I'm going to have to raise this up a little more. That looks pretty well centered. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and group these three pieces together so that I don't have to worry about lining them up again. You'll notice the scaling is still locked for all of this. And let me just change it all to one color. So I still can't, now that I grouped that, I can't change the size of any of this at all. It won't let me. So how do I trick Tinkercad into letting me enlarge this just slightly so that it fits onto the ball joint? Check this out. I'm going to select just this part. I'm going to export the STL just for that foot. Then I'm going to import, choose the file. I'm going to import the STL that I just exported. And in just one moment, another copy will appear. There it is. Now, this copy has no restrictions on it. Isn't that nice? So I'm going to go ahead and delete the original now. And the copy, I just need it to be a little bit bigger, not too much bigger. It still has to fit onto the joint. Just a click. And then if I want to test that, I could always tip it to the side and just kind of line it up and see if it does look perfect. But I think we just created a dynamic sculpture that is very weird and that has pieces connected in 3 different ways.